Well, look who came back, Matt said sinisterly. Okay, Matt, it's time you stop this, Joey said. You're right, it's about time he stops this, Oliver said, as he pulled out a gun and shot Matt, killing him. Then Samantha would kill Tom. Then both Oliver and Samantha started firing at us. Toby, Jeff, Mark, Jack, and I started running from the gunshots. But I would have to shoot Samantha, sending her back to her Mario and Sonic adventures through the dead house. Then Oliver went towards the machine, having a malfunction, and started to run away from it. I then started to chase him. I chased him until we managed to get outside of Matt's house. The building exploded, but luckily my friends were out of the building. Then me and Oliver looked at each other. You killed my wife! Oliver screamed at me. No, I just sent her back to where she came from. Unlike you, however, killed my uncle, I told him. Really, kid? You're gonna cry about that? Oliver taunted. No, I might kill you for it, I said. Well then kill me, he said. I ran up to him and started punching him until he had a bloody nose. I continued to do that until he kicked me down. While I was down, I kicked Oliver in the leg and he tripped a bit. We both got up and then I went for another punch, and I got Oliver a bloody nose. Then he pulled out a knife and whistled, but when he went to stab me, I dodged the knife and kept on running. Oliver was then down on the ground. He even dropped his knife. I grabbed it and tried to stab him in the head before being stopped by Mario and Sonic. He has to pay for my uncle, I said. Not like that, Sonic said. He will pay. You could just send him back to the game, Mario said. I then picked up my send back, pointed at Oliver, and pulled the trigger, sending him back to the Mario and Sonic game, Adventures Through the Dead House. I was relieved that Oliver and the other villains were gone. Mac, you there? Charlotte asked through my phone. Yes, we finished the job, I told her. Me, Toby, Jeff, Joey, Mark, and Jack, we all went to Joey's base. We walked in and I was greeted by Charlotte and Ike. Charlotte then went up to me and kissed me. I was worried about you, Charlotte said. Okay, guys, we gotta send these guys back to their game, movie, book, and comic book, wherever they're from, Joey said. Just one question, Sonic, representing the Mario and Sonic game, said. What's your question? Joey asked. Will those people who die in different types of media, will they die? Sonic asked. Yes, but if we don't, then that might create another paradox in our universe, Joey said. First up were the characters from Mario and Sonic, Adventures Through the Dead House, and Return to the Dead House. We said goodbye to them, and then we teleported them back to their game. Next up were the characters from Twisted Tim Burton movie trilogy. Then after we said our goodbyes, we said goodbye to our characters from the 70s movies, and then we said our goodbyes and teleported back to where they came from. The 80s movies characters are now, Joey said. We sent them back to their own universes. After they teleported away, it was now time for the 90s characters to go. We said goodbye to them and teleported back to their respective movies. Next up were the 2000 movie characters. We sent them back to their own universes. Then we said goodbye to our 2010 movie characters, and they soon went back. We said our goodbyes and teleported back to the movies they came from. We did the same with the Marvel comics, and we soon did it with as well as the other characters. After we said goodbye to the characters, we got back home after all the characters were returned back to their own universes. Now it's time for Jurassic Park Extinction, Joey said. The last ones. Then we went all in our own ways and then headed home. When I got home, I laid in bed and went to sleep. 9 years later, I am now 27 years old. Me and Charlotte are married and I have 2 kids, a son named Jim and a daughter named Aris. We are currently driving to drop off Jim and Cindy at my parents' house, as me and Charlotte can go to work. Alright, you two be good. Have a good day, Charlotte told them. After we dropped them off, we drove to work, and once we got in the building, we were greeted by Ike. Good morning, mates, Ike said in an Australian accent. Hi, Ike, Charlotte said. Good to see you, Ike, I said. Maybe after work, Joey will be having a party to celebrate 9 years after saving the world, Ike said. That's cool, I said. After work, me and Charlotte will have to pick up Jim and Iris first. Then we'll be there, Max said. Hours later, me and Charlotte went up to our parents' house to pick up Jim and Iris. We would then drive over to Joey's place, and then would be met by Ike outside waiting for us. Then me, Charlotte, Jim, Iris, and I would walk to Joey's. "Hey, Mac, how has it been?" Joey asked. "It's been good," I replied. I would then greet other people like Toby and his recent wedded wife, Emily. Jeff and his wife, Diana, were there too. We even saw Mark with his wife, Scarlett. Even his two sons and a daughter. His sons' names were Stephen and Jake, and his daughter's name was Layla. Jack was here, and so was his wife, Massey, and the son and daughter named Owen and Claire too. "Okay, who's ready to eat?" Joey asked. Then we all gathered around the table, and just before we ate, Joey had something to say. "Before we ate, I have a few words to say," Joey said. 9 years ago, we may have saved the world, but we also lost a friend," Joey said. "He may be gone, but I assure you, he will never be forgotten," Joey continued. "That friend's name was Jim, and Mac is continuing his legacy by naming his son after his own uncle," Joey continued once more. "So a toast to Jim," Joey continued. "To Jim," everyone said. Then they all started to eat the food. Alright, my pretties, that was The Nightmare Crisis by Mario and Sonic Fan. Yeah. Whoa, this story was one big of a read, I'll tell ya. This one was definitely a really long story, but I still find it to be a pretty enjoyable story. Not really a creepypasta, but more of a fan story, but I still find it to be a really enjoyable one. I do really have to say that, it's a good concept, having, the main protagonist and, a couple of his friends that he knows travel to different universes with this machine, through games and movies and the like. But I do have maybe a few negatives that I have to say about this story, but before I get to that, I'm going to go with the positives. Well, I could say the grammar was good for the most part. I mean, yeah, it was good for most of it. I mean, it was pretty good. Like, I was able to read certain parts without, having any issue saying a certain thing. Like, yeah, maybe I did stutter a bit, but at least I was able to read it with no problem. However, though, I can definitely say I actually find the story to have, like, a really good concept, and it seemed to be pretty interesting. However, though, I could definitely say the sentence structuring was pretty well done of its own self, too. But, however, though, the punctuation a couple times were not really in exact places. Like, I mean, I think there were a few run-on sentences in the story, so I kind of want to point that out, that there was a couple of run-on sentences in the story, so part of the story was a little bit hard for me to read, but despite that, I actually found it to be, readable. But I think there were places that commas shouldn't be there. I mean, there was a few places that commas were there where there shouldn't be. Comments were not there, but placed with periods, or they weren't there, or they were just all over the place. Like, I mean, not gonna lie, that actually made the story a bit hard to read. At least in my eyes, it made it hard to read. Like, parts of this story it was really hard for me to read at certain parts because, I mean, there was places that, I think there was just more commas than anything, to be honest. I mean, that's just me, but I mean, you guys might have something else on your own end. Maybe if you guys want to read it, it's on Google Docs. I'm sure maybe Mario and Sonic Fan can link the story, I don't know if it will be in the description or something, but if he can, then you guys can have a read at the story and then you can have a read for yourself. But yeah, despite that, I actually found the story to be pretty good. It does have a pretty good ending, taking it place like 9 years later after the events of The Nightmare Crisis. It's actually a pretty good movie. Like, it honestly kind of reminds me of that of a superhero movie or any kind of movie that involves a good ending in general. I mean, that's pretty cool because I never really expected that in a story like this. Well, maybe there were a couple of stories I did read that did have that, but that's besides the point. Another thing I really want to state right now is, another part is that there were too many characters. The main negative, I would have to say, it's probably deducts at least a point or so, is that there were too many characters in the story. I mean, if you're going to put a couple movie characters in it, it would be fine, or game characters, but there were literally too many characters in this movie. And this is not me being, an asshole or anything, but if you're going to put so many characters like that, it just makes Pooh's Adventure Wiki a brand new one. I mean, I'm not trying to sit there and, put down this offer or anything, but my advice to the offer in the future, don't add too many characters like this. I just want to, state that for the near future. If you're going to have, a couple characters from a different universe, for example, a couple of my stories, my past stories, I kind of add too many characters, and the same with Space Voyager when he wrote his stories. But, with that being said, my advice to be is don't put so much characters like that, because there were a couple times where so many characters were mentioned in big paragraphs. I ended up reading a bunch of them because there was too many characters and it was really hard for me to keep track. So, yeah, you could definitely say, if there are going to be, characters in it that don't really have a role, then why would you put them in there if you don't, if they don't have a role in a certain part at all? That's just kind of confusing. They're just there for the sake of being there. If you're going to have them as, a cameo appearance or something, that's fine. But if you're going to sit there and, just have them there for the sake of having them there and have no plot or any meaning to the story, then there's no really a point on keeping them there. I've done that a couple times with my other stories, but I'm getting better at them, though. At least I'm improving as I go. I understand not everyone's perfect in their own way. But another thing I really would have to say, that was one issue I want to say, and this kind of bugged me, while reading this, and this is not to offend Mario and Sonic fan. As we were getting, to the end of the story, and there was a couple parts in this story, I think it's near towards the end, the final battle, the sentences and some of the words were being repeated and being reused over and over and over again. A couple of times where there was a certain phrase that, kept being looped over and over and over again, at the end of, certain, some part in the story. What was it? Oh, yeah. If you remember, there was this part, I think when it had to involve the characters, I'm just going to say an example. Well, switch me back to this universe, Joey says, and then the certain character points a gun at them, surround them. Having some of those certain phrases from certain characters being mentioned over and over and over again, and I kind of had to skip saying it because I didn't feel like really saying it because I kind of got tired of saying it after maybe 5 times. I got sick and tired of it. Saying a certain phrase or mentioning something over and over and over again, it gets really excessively repetitive, and that's kind of what bugged me about it in the story. It doesn't really happen till, the last bit of few chapters towards the end of the story. And I thought I would just point that out for reference. So if you're going to have something being said over and over again, maybe reduce it. Don't say it 5+ times over and over again. Because, yeah, if you do that and somebody else reads your story, they could really say that you're re-saying certain phrases over and over again. And that kind of what brought the story down another point is because of, certain phrases are being repeated again. If you're going to have it repeated twice or 3 times, should be maybe no problem. But if you're going to obsessively keep doing that for almost every single sentence in that, it gets really repetitive, and people may find, oh my God, the story is repeating something, I'm not going to read anymore. That's going to make people, not want to read a certain part again and skip like I just did. That's just me, just saying that for the future reference whenever you make another story. So, yeah. Besides the 2 major not major concerns, but the 2 major things that I did not like about this story, I still find this story to be actually a well-made one. Maybe not perfect, but it's definitely a pretty good one. So I want to thank Mario and Sonic fan for writing this story. This one was pretty good. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to sit here and say this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas or stories, whatever you prefer to call this one. This is just my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 8 out of 10. While it's really enjoyable and it's a pretty good one, there were only a few things I have to say that I did not like about the story. Well, for one, there were too many characters in the story that kind of makes it look like they would be belonging in a Pooh's Adventure wiki story or something. I mean, I'm not saying that this story is a Pooh's Adventure wiki story or anything, because it's not, but I'm just saying. Another major thing is repeating certain phrases over and over again in this story. I mean, yeah, I kind of got bored of saying that so many times that I had to, skip a couple times because I just didn't want to read a certain phrase over and over again. That's just me being brutally honest, but yeah, like I said, that's just me being fair and honest. But like I'm gonna say right now, this is just my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I'm perfectly content with your own opinion. You are free to state your own thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Anyways, what did you guys think about this creepypasta or fanfiction? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it enjoyable? Did you not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here to this channel, like, comment, subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.